Hey, glad to be coming at you live. This is my first time at taking a run at doing a live on my YouTube channel, but I really felt there was a reason that I need to be able to do this tonight. We had this crazy story of the corruption arrests in Toronto, the seven police arrested, one retired, and it was just a really devastating blow. I got a call right away from CTV News to go on and do an interview with them and a reaction just as the presser ended. I was watching it online to see what was going on with it. I obliged them. I went on. I used to do a lot of hits with CTV. What I've been known and usually pretty good for is giving a take on what's happening with police while not just giving a standard police line and just outright defending the police. I sort of call the balls and strikes. And I lay them out there when I think the cops are doing well or they need to be explained. I do it. If I think they make a mistake, I also say if they've made a mistake. So, with the arrests today, it was shocking. Quite frankly, I was made aware of it. I started getting hits and tips from people the night before of what was going on, and I thought, well, okay, this will just be it'll be a hit. It won't be anything crazy. You've got some cops that did something wrong, and away we go. But as it turns out, as this unfolded, as the details started to unfold from what York Region was able to find with the corruption, I became more and more concerned about what was actually happening here today and why it had to come out the way that it came out. I mean, in essence, what it seems was there was a hit put out on a corrections officer. And when that hit went down, the police in York Region became aware of it, made some arrests. And then they say after that, all of this came to their attention. So I'm going to assume that one of the bad guys just let it go and told them what they were involved with and what it was. And then the chase was on to go nail down who the cops were and what they were doing. And I take it as these York Region coppers got into it, they were probably even surprised at the way it went. Cops who investigate cops, it's always a tough subject around police, the internal affairs, other issues. Sometimes internal affairs can be a real pain. It can be a real problem for police, and they're not always fair. They're not always square. But in this case, the York Regional cops who are doing in this investigation, it looks like they did a bang-up job on it. They would have run a lot of surveillance, a lot of intel work on this. Seemingly, a lot of people would have been involved. I imagine the amount of wiretapping and everything else was quite extensive, the number of warrants that probably had to be issued, particularly to do with the forensic part of how the information came out and who took it. So they did a great job of keeping it quiet, not giving it up. And I made a comment earlier that if you're going to be a cop who's pursuing other cops, if you're doing it for the right reason and you get the right cop off the air or off the job or get him charged or get him dealt with, it's good for your heart. It really is. It takes a special kind of cop to be able to do that and do it with justice in mind. That's one thing that I hear from cops all the time, that quite often the kangaroo courts and the professional standards, they don't really treat you fairly. I mean, that's what you'll get a lot of that. That being said, I've seen some cops that needed to have their behinds kicked. They got it kicked and they turned around. But this is very devastating, I think, for the Toronto police, because what became apparent to me as we go through the story is as they became aware about this attempted murder, this hit, and a on-duty police officer being involved, they contacted the chief of the Toronto Police right away, Myron Demkiw. Now, I mean, I guess you do that, but you have to also consider whether or not you're going to be interfering with your investigation, because you don't know where the corruption starts and where it ends. Just my headphones here. But they made that call. Demke was aware of it, said, I'm going to give you the resources to look at it. But I think at that point, they should have brought somebody else in, aside from Demke. He is a conflict. He is the chief. It's going to be his force and his reputation based on how bad the corruption ends up being. And it looks pretty bad for it. And it looks like he was just tag teamed to be on it. I'm not sure how much he had to do with it. I didn't hear York Police giving a whole lot of talk for him participating a lot in it. So the problem comes here. I've made the suggestion that the SIU should have been called because someone was shot at, injured, or whatever, due to the acts of a police officer. And that puts it squarely in the mandate of the SIU. Now, when you say SIU, boom, that gets hearts beating and hair standing up and some cops getting angry because they're not all thrilled with the SIU and how it does its work. I'll say this, I've watched the SIU pretty closely for the last, 15 years. They have grown, they have gotten better at doing their job. And the one thing they are, though, they're impartial. So I was surprised that they weren't allowed to use their mandate. I was surprised that they didn't come in, if nothing else, to ride as a witness and gather evidence, as the corruption investigation may have been led by some officers who were extremely well equipped and trained to investigate the corruption. Perhaps they don't have that talent in the SIU, but they certainly have the talent to sit as a witness and see that they're using warrants correctly, that they are chasing down leads, they're not giving somebody a pass on that. Oh, look whose name came up here. Well, let's not involve that and go over here. So you get more credibility by having a witness sitting there looking at it. I think this really needs to be discussed. Now, the other part that's very bad about this, and I already see it, I've seen it before, is the effect this is going to have on the morale on the police department and on good cops. Good cops are going to hear this everywhere they go on calls for the next little while, all the stuff and everything else. And when you're a cop, I kind of laugh. I watch the ICE stuff going on down in Minneapolis and people yelling and calling swear words at the coppers and everything else, and I laugh. I mean, once you've been on the job for 6 months, people calling you names doesn't bother you in the least when you're a cop. It's the funniest thing. They bounce off you better than bullets on comic book Superman when someone insults you. But this one will have a bit of a sting to it because if it's about corruption and there was potential corruption there that's alleged, this is all alleged, by the way. All of this is alleged and yet to be proven in court. But it carries with it a certain sting that you're going to have to wear. And it stains the uniform for every cop. Takes the shine off the badge. I mean, that's it. And they need this to get looked after and dealt with well, not covered up, fully investigated for what's on. I mean, I am told from some other people that I know that a lot of the cops who are on chat groups and other things, you know what they're saying about these corruption charges? That they're not really surprised that they happened. Me, I'm a little bit shocked. Maybe I've been too nice for a little while and away from the job or something like that. I'm a little bit shocked about how deep it is. But many of them on the inside have been very unhappy with the leadership, with the hiring, with the quality of the recruits that are coming in. I've heard this for like about 10 years, that some of them can't speak English very well. They can't write very well. They can't read very well. They're not the sharpest pencils in the box, a lot of them. And they're getting in and getting on the job, and it's very uncomfortable to see a situation get lowered. I mean, you're a professional, you're going somewhere at a standard like this, and you have the partners or other people coming in with the standard that's down here. It's not good for morale. Not to mention, when you have the ones down here, they're more than likely the ones that would rather and be more easier to be corrupted. I mean, that's just the way it is. When it comes to power and being a cop, I often use the saying talking about our politicians today, many of them, that weak men are dangerous when they have power. Weak men. because they don't know how to use power correctly. Good cops, and I know lots of them, good cops, they know how to use power correctly. They don't use force excessively. They don't even arrest people just because they can. They know how to work with people and try to save people's lives. They make a difference. The unfortunate thing is here, some of those good cops, they get caught in the meat grinder too. I know some good cops who've been put to the meat grinder who were stellar, and it's really the leadership's problem. The leadership is vindictive, petty, and out to try and ruin their career or hurt them. That happens on the job. I guarantee you that happens. So the problem here is you're a good cop. You have to deal with this. Morale means a lot when you're a cop. It means a lot. It's not good to have a cop going in the job every day, feeling miserable, not liking the leadership, feeling disrespected all the time. You much rather go in there standing up straight, looking good in the uniform, and having people saying, "Thank you, officer," and doing a good job. But Toronto's at a real crossroads. I'll be frank, on my X account, I did not want to see Chief Demkew renewed. I was surprised he was renewed as the chief. I don't think he does a good job at the chief. I don't think he sets a good example as a chief. And I think that's going to go down and run into the morale for the officers. I mean, you can't have the guy that made the mess be the guy in charge of cleaning up the mess. And that's what he said he wants to do today. He doesn't want to resign. He wants to be the guy that cleans up the mess. Doesn't work that way. If you're the guy that made the mess, the same mind that made it can't be the same mind that corrects it because you never saw it in the first place. I really think there needs to be some accountability here by Chief Demkew. It seems to me he came out and said that he was going to have the new independent police directorate, whatever the fancy name is for the new guy looking after all of the oversight of police in terms of adequacy. He said, I wrote a letter to him asking him to investigate broadly these 5 areas. My suspicion is he was more or less probably told by someone, and maybe York Region even said to him, look, you got to get this cleaned up. You got a lot of problems in your house. And part of us doing this press conference and you being there is you better start making some effort towards cleaning this up. That's my guess. That's my editorial writing on that. But we need to see what's going on here. We need to see. This corruption looks like it ran far, ran deep. When you got cops giving up information to kill other law enforcement, whether it's a corrections guy or another copper, it doesn't get any worse than that. It really, from a cop's point of view, it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, I put the clip up on my X today from Miami Vice back in the day when Crockett goes and meets the guy who used to be his partner, who he found out was turned and ratting out other cops and getting other cops killed. And he confronted him. And he said to him, man, I trusted you. I had you and your family over to my house for dinner. I trusted you. I trusted you. And whoever it was burned that trust. It's pretty serious. I want to say that I don't know any of them at the police association with their leadership. I've been somewhat glad to see over the last year or so how they've approached many of the controversies in policing. I see that they are stepping up for the members. I mean, this is another key area for Demkew, the way he's been policing the protests. I think he's not doing his job. I think, in my opinion, it's neglect of duty. He's got some law interpretation. He's telling police not to arrest people when they're committing the offense I can see plainly of criminal harassment. And the community suffers, not to mention probably lost $80 million in overtime for doing it. So he's got all the cops up with that. The association went after him for that. Hey, why don't you clarify the orders a little bit more? Because our police are getting tired of being yelled at in the streets and treated like crap. And that's because of the way they're being led. The way they're being led to police and what the leadership is saying or not saying when they're doing it. So I think there should be pressure on this chief to resign or someone to ask for him to resign for the good of the force, to move this forward, get somebody in that the people respect. Let me tell you, I remember working as a cop on shift. you'd get some sergeants, staff sergeants. We used to say you'd go up a mountain of broken glass to get things done for them, to work for them, to do well. The job was good. The camaraderie was good. The teamwork was good. I've also worked on shifts where you had just morons for leadership that belittled officers, treated them poorly, and they weren't even good leaders. Those were the most miserable times for going to work. So I would encourage the Toronto Police Department to take a look at the leadership, because somehow it's leadership that got it this way. Leadership got it this way. I mean, you have one of the accused here. I think he's like third class or something, maybe fourth or second class. He's only been on for a little while. You got the very beginning of a career getting involved allegedly in this corruption. You've got a retired guy involved in this corruption. You have 19-year sergeants involved in this corruption. And then you have other constables that are partway through their career involved in the corruption. It's spread across the board. I mean, that's a pretty wide swath to have this going on. I don't know what your opinions are on it. I've heard from a bunch of coppers. Some don't like that I said bring the SIU into it. I said, well, maybe your opinion, but I've been outside the job long enough. I've got a different point of view to see the accountability on it. And it gets better when bad cops get disciplined. When bad cops get dealt with, morale goes up. It goes up. So if you're out in the public, you see a cop out there the next number of days, Toronto, York region. I got a feeling Peel region may be needing some help in a little bit too on this from the rumors that are going around. Give him a smile, give him a wave, or give him a thumbs up. Let him know. I said, when I was a cop, it was so rare to come across a bad cop. And when you did, they sometimes got dealt with in their own way. By the force, by the people they have to work with. They would deal with them. But you know, corrupt cops, they're not that different than the corrupt ones I would be busting in business. They'll keep everything secret. You won't see what they do. They monitor their own work. They don't allow anybody to check up on them, or nobody checks up on them. They're usually not out telling everybody what they're doing. So there could have been tons of cops working with these ones here and not have any idea what they were doing. That's what I believe for now. We'll wait to see the investigation points out anything further. But there's certainly a cancer on the job. And will cutting it out cure it? Or are we going to need some chemotherapy to deal with all the issues that allowed it to be created? Anyways, I just wanted to give you that inside part of it, my take on it. Thanks for joining me on my live. Subscribe and follow to my channel. And I got no doubt you'll be hearing more about this as this rolls out, because I believe there's nowhere near this is the end. Let me roll back again before the sign off. I remember the Rob Ford investigation. At the time I was working on the radio, a major radio station in Toronto. And we were interviewing the dealer who supposedly sold drugs to the then mayor, Rob Ford. And he told us on the air, he also delivered those same drugs to judges. They were also on his client list. But that never got investigated. You never heard anything about that. So how far did this corruption go? Usually when the mob, or they're buying into someone, they buy and they get access. They're not going to keep it to one force. They may also have court people may be involved in this. Prosecutors could be, judges could be, JPs could be. I mean, you don't know. It's usually a lot of people that get involved when you're talking this level of crime. Don't forget, the one guy was a major dealer of pot, so much so they was sending tons of pot down to the US and lots of cocaine. Lots of cocaine was coming back in. What's this tied to? I heard one question at the presser. Someone asked, was Ryan Redding, was he in that jail? where they went after to go have the detention officer killed. And the police said, I have no information about that. I mean, is that how big the crime's getting now? That we're getting organized hits on cops, on detention people, drugs running freely, firearms being distributed, tips to organized crime, and we can't get it investigated or caught? Anyways, let me know your thoughts. Put some information in the comments down there, or catch me later on my channel. Let me know your thoughts if you agree or disagree, or where you think this is going to go. I think I'll be doing more on this story in the next little while. Stay tuned. This is Ross McLean for the McLean Chronicles, former law enforcement, former bodyguard to billionaires. I work Fortune 50 security for some of the biggest companies in the world. And I like sharing my experience with you. Ciao.